In wrestling, first impressions can be everything. At least that's what I learned at that How to Debut 101 course run by Professor Karrion Kross. In an industry with an increasingly judgmental, increasingly hardcore fan base, there are few things as important as being cool. And what's cooler than looking like a sex colander? Nothing, Professor Kross. Nothing at all. Bad debuts have killed a lot of wrestlers' careers. Hello Shockmaster, hello Glacier, hello the Renegade, hello a lot of WCW wrestlers, turns out. But sometimes when a wrestler is talented and tenacious enough, and also WWE don't release them because they're heartless chuds, then they can not only survive a rocky start, but somehow flourish against all odds. I'm Adam, hailing from partsFUNknown, and here are 10 WWE wrestlers who survived horrible debuts. And if you'd like to see some other fun videos about silly times that WWE was a bit bad and that, why don't you check out our 10 biggest WWE mistakes made series, which we talked about their biggest mistakes with The Undertaker, with John Cena, with the WWE Championship. There's a lot of them. WWE makes a few mistakes, you see, and let's hear about some of them. Before we get into the list, I'd just like to say a huge thank you to this video's sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends. And it just got its newest call-up to the main roster, legendary champion Deliana, who doesn't just love a trendy undercut, she's also got balls. 2 blue glowing balls that hover in each hand. Balls. And you can get it right now with Raid's special Deliana Chase event. All you have to do is log in and play Raid for 7 days between now and 20th of July, and you'll get her for free. So download Raid using our link in the video description below, or scan the QR code on screen now. All new players just enter promo code MyDeliana and get 50 XP brews to instantly get your legendary hero Deliana to max level 50. And there's a ton of events happening in Raid this month, new events for the summer solstice. It's called the Path of Light, and you'll be able to explore 3 branching paths to get the rewards you want the most. On top of that, there's some awesome new champions coming out and a set of skins for the amazing Trundra Guild Mallet. All of this treasure will be waiting for you here. Please do at least check the game out, as it's awesome and also really helps support partsFUNknown. Number 10, Randy Orton lives in the O-Zone. Randall Keith Orton has had a 20-year career in WWE, which is bloody loads of years, which is all the more impressive when you consider that he debuted with precisely 0 of the iconic things that made him a legend. The whole arms outstretched pose. Nope, he debuted with a pose where he held his arms over his head like a big O. You know, O for Orton. Do you get it? It's very important that you get it. The RKO? Nope, WWE doubled down on the whole O thing and gave him a finisher that was either called the Overdrive, get it, or the O-Zone. Do you get it? And it was MVP's playmaker, aka a really finisher. The cocky heel persona, was that there too? No, he was a bland, smiley white meat babyface. Orton's initial run looked set to be a flop. Ironically, getting injured saved his career. Orton hurt his shoulder, but instead of disappearing from our screens, he cut a series of promos called Randy News Network, where he gave smug updates on his shoulder, assuming that everybody was really missing him, and they were wonderfully grating, turning him into the cocky heel that would slowly become the legend killer. Number 9, Hurt Me Caddy. What's the only thing less cool than a weird racist golfer? A weird racist golfer's caddy. Apologies to all the caddies that this comment offends, but in a number of ways, I don't care about that at all. Dolph Ziggler's first exposure to the WWE Universe was in carrying the clubs of Kerwin White, Chavo Guerrero's Wasp overhaul that was an attempt to be a comment on ultra-conservative suburban America, and just came off as kinda racist and bad. He was what Road Dogg's The Roadie was to Jeff Jarrett's country singer, but if Jarrett started going around saying that if it's not white, it's not right, the gimmick died a death, but thankfully didn't take Ziggler down with it, who was next year repackaged as a male cheerleader, which frankly was an upgrade, before once again officially debuting as Dolph Ziggler in 2008. Whenever we get mad about WWE's bizarre tradition of naming wrestlers, and I will never call him Gunther, it's worth remembering that someone called Dolph Ziggler has been around for 14 years. Number 8, DDS word. Can you imagine the gimmick of wrestling dentists getting over? We can't imagine it, and we won't imagine it. What would their finisher be? Something to do with their opponent's mouth? Ludicrous. You're drunk. In 1995, Glenn Jacobs debuted on WWE TV, having his original Unabomb gimmick swiftly repackaged as Isaac Yankem DDS, wrestling's only dentist gimmick, and it died a plaque-ridden halitosis death like all dentist gimmicks would. and have. He had bad teeth, was Jerry Lawler's friend, and his entrance music was a high-pitched drill, and it was all so hateful, not in the fun, Miz-tinged kind of hatred, but more in the, oh god, he's here, quick spread out so he can't have lunch at our table hatred. Jacobs was then famously repackaged as Fake Diesel once Kevin Nash jumped ship to WCW, aka the worst episode of Doctor Who ever, before finally, mercifully salvaging a legendary career as Kane, aka one of the coolest gimmicks in the entire history of professional wrestling. He made boom booms with his arms, and now he just makes boo-boos with his stupid tweets. Number 7, looking like a Deke head. Can you imagine looking at Deacon Batista and thinking, yeah, he'll probably play a named character in the most successful movie ever made, but this is the timeline we live in, and I can't really tell you if that's a good thing. Long before he was Drax the Destroyer, he was Batista, the Animal, multiple-time world champion and owner of the worst belly button in the multiverse. But before he was Batista, he was Deacon Batista, aka what would happen if you shaved the head of mid-2000s Michael Cole and inflated him with a foot bump. He was the Diesel to Reverend Devon's Shawn Michaels, and zero respect intended to Mr. Dudley, but the whole Reverend Devon business was a pillock casserole. In the initial WWE draft in 2002, WWE split up the Dudley boys for no good reason, and it made people angry and sad. Bubba Ray did okay, because Bubba Ray is one of the great underrated charismas in wrestling, but Reverend Devon fared a lot worse, with the only memorable thing about his run being the fact that Batista used to follow him around clutching a donation box like Ollie clutches his copy of Eat, Pray, Love. Number 6, the real Turtles. The real turd. Look, you know what I'm saying. Here is a picture of The Miz in The Real World Back to New York, a reality TV show that featured a tiny Mizanin having difficult conversations about race, learning some life lessons, and looking like if Fievel from American Tail got into a frat. In 2004, Miz parlayed that fame into a spot in Tough Enough 4, which saw him make his pay-per-view debut at Armageddon in a deeply boxing match. Despite the lamest possible introduction, not just to the audience but also to the locker room, some of Miz's hazing stories are incredibly lame. Grown men forcing him to change in the corridor is genuinely pathetic behavior. Despite all of this, in 2 years' time, The Miz will celebrate 20 years. 20 years in the company, a run that's seen him main event WrestleMania as WWE champion and put himself in genuine contention as one of the greatest Intercontinental champions of all time. Good for that man. Number 5, Karrion Kross version 1. Heck of a legacy for Karrion Kross. His entire run as NXT champion entirely overshadowed by the fact he'll go down in history as having perhaps the worst NXT call-up of all time. He turned up on Raw with the NXT championship without all the bells and whistles that got him over and lost to Jeff Hardy, a man who's also no longer with the company. Just objectively nonsense. But did you know they've actually done this before with someone who went on to main event WrestleMania? Yes, indeed. Cast your minds back to December 2014 and on Raw, in order to hype up her upcoming match against Sasha Banks at NXT TakeOver R Evolution, Charlotte Flair appeared, NXT Women's Champion Charlotte Flair. She came down to the ring wearing the NXT Women's Championship, faced off against Natalya, was accidentally called Summer Rae by Michael Cole, lovely stuff, and lost in 2 minutes. The saving grace was that Charlotte then disappeared for a while and reappeared in 2015 when NXT was much hotter, and has risen that wave to the main event of WrestleMania since. So hopefully everyone has forgotten that loss, right? But a list maker never forgets. Number 4, Latino No Heat. Eddie Guerrero is one of the all-time greats, a former WWE champion, a dream match machine, and before he passed away, one of the most naturally charismatic performers on the roster, and he almost blew his WWE career on day one. After jumping ship from the ailing WCW, and in 2000 WCW was ailing as much as a man with a harpoon through his lung is ailing, Perry Saturn, Dean Malenko, Chris Benoit, and Eddie Guerrero looked to make a huge splash in the company, being spotted in the crowd on the January 31st episode of Raw and air quotes invading as the Radicals. Radicals with a Z, because 2000. The very next episode of SmackDown, all 4 members of the Radicals got matches. Bizarrely, the Radicals lost all of their matches. Trips beat Benoit, X-Pac beat Malenko. Those 2 were planned, but the Outlaws beating Saturn and Guerrero wasn't. During the tag match, Guerrero dislocated his elbow, hitting his frog splash, and in a panic, despite being booked to win the match, told Road Dogg to pin him. Eddie injured himself and went off script in his debut match in a faction that lost all of their first matches in the company. A minor miracle that he didn't go the way that Malenko and Saturn eventually did. Number 3, he didn't even have a top hat. Stone Cold Steve Austin drew the most money over a short period of time in the history of pro wrestling. Wouldn't have known it based on his January 96 debut when he turned up, was interviewed by a tomato in a drug lord's outfit, was given the world's gaudiest cummerbund, and was given the name The Ringmaster, which I think they wanted to sound dominating like The Beastmaster, but it doesn't because ringmasters are already a thing, and that thing is the dude in the top hat who vamps for time in between the clowns and the f***ing jugglers. But wait, it somehow gets worse. Despite the name, WWE had big plans for Austin and booked him to go on a bit of a tear in the 96 Royal Rumble. Sadly, Austin botched an elimination survival spot, slipped on the ropes, and was eliminated too early and practically off camera. Despite the most tepid of starts, the man would eventually somehow become both stone cold and white hot at the same time. Number 2, Michael Flatline. Fiddle-dee-diddly-diddly-dee. That is the sound that all people from Ireland are born to, the song they first learned to play on the concertina, and the song that they will all one day be buried to. Becky Lynch is from Ireland, and so naturally, like the bowler hat sporting Finlay that came before her, and the Hornswoggles before that, she made her debut doing an Irish jig, and to quote OSW, state of your entrance, mate. Even Blue Pants didn't give off such intense jobber energy, and she was called Blue Pants because she wore blue pants. Genuinely, that level of fiddle-dee-dee would have seemed out of place in the goddamn new generation era, so it's an absolute testament to Becky's talent that she was able to push through, establish some actual combat legitimacy, due in no small part to that match at TakeOver Unstoppable, and then go on to become one of the many people on this list to main event WrestleMania. Becky Lynch entered WWE as a twinkly, childlike parody, and now she exists as a battle-tested cosmic badass. That is quite the journey, Fiddle TT. And number 1, you're tired. Some debuts are bad because they establish you as a joke. Some debuts are bad because of freak injury, and some debuts are so bad you get sacked. Daniel Bryan's journey in WWE goes like this. Day 1, fired. Day 2 to day 1398, lol, he's small. Day 1399, main event of WrestleMania. Makes sense. On the June 7th, 2010 episode of Raw, the Nexus debuted attacking everything with a corporate logo, including John Cena, a man who has a corporate logo branded onto his soul. They were told to go out there and kick dangerous ass, so they did, but apparently WWE neglected to tell them about the surprisingly strict parameters of kicking dangerous ass, because Daniel Bryan kicks so much dangerous ass, specifically choking Justin Roberts with his own tie, that WWE sponsors balked at the idea of such brutality airing on a TV PG product and pressured the Big Dub into giving D-Bry the big boot. What a debut. Arrive, be too good at your job, get the out. Thankfully, WWE were able to bring the American Dragon back, slotting him straight into the main event of SummerSlam, no less, and while he isn't with the company today, it's not through lack of them trying to keep him. Daniel Bryan survived and thrived, perhaps more than any other wrestler to botch their coming out party. Makes sense, he is the best wrestler in the world. And that's our list. Which amazing wrestler do you think had the worst debut in wrestling? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like and share this video around if you enjoyed it, and never forget to jam that jam.